Hello. Hello. You have to go.
Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y muchísimas gracias al Festival Ja por hacer posible esta maravillosa reunión estos días en Bilbao alrededor del humor, de la literatura y de la magia. Estamos aquí como alrededor de una hoguera. Digo que estamos alrededor de la literatura, la magia y el humor, y que las tres cosas suceden en los límites de lo que somos todos, ¿no? La magia o el sentimiento de la magia implica una creencia o supone al menos un ámbito un poco inexplicable, un poco invisible. El humor tiene que buscar al otro, se lanza con referencias y puede jugar con las incertidumbres de todos. Las hace temblar, produce risas, produce sonrisas, que es una muy buena gimnasia, que puede ser casi un yoga. Yes. ¿Y la literatura qué es? Quizá esto es un poco más difícil. Tenemos hoy el placer y el honor de escuchar a Olga Tokarczuk, escritora que teje 1000 historias en cada página, autora polaca, autora centroeuropea, autora cosmopolita, cuyas obras están impregnadas de magia y de ironía. Ha escrito novelas inolvidables como Los errantes, Antaño o, más recientemente, los libros de Jacob, con los que ha ganado los más prestigiosos premios, el premio Nike, que es el mayor premio en Polonia, el Man Booker Internacional y también, por supuesto, el Premio Nobel de Literatura en 2018. Es un gran placer estar hoy aquí hablando contigo, Olga. Y tenemos que confesar una cosa. Desgraciadamente yo no hablo polaco, desgraciadamente ella no habla español. Si pudiéramos hablar ella en polaco y yo en polaco, seríamos mucho más inteligentes, pero hemos decidido que vamos a intentarlo en inglés para ir a un terreno común, ¿no? Vamos a intentarlo. Mi primera pregunta, my first question, if you let me, allow me,
Okay.
I would like to ask you if you think the Nobel Prize is a good prize for a writer. I mean, a good prize for him to continue writing, or is somehow paralyzing. Szymborska, I remember, said that only she wanted was be left alone for writing. What was your feeling about it?
Oh, it was quite complicated and funny on the beginning, and I have you tell the story how I got the information that I am the winner of this prize. That was the day of announcement, and we were with my husband in a trip in Germany, going from one place to Bielefeld. Bielefeld, Germans used to say that Bielefeld is a nowhere city in Germany. So I don't know, I'm for sure that you have in Spain such a place which is like a metaphoric nowhere. So we were driving to Bielefeld, and I knew that they will announce the Nobel Prize winner. So when the telephone rang, I thought impatiently, oh, perhaps they would like to know my commentary, that somebody won, and then that was always before also that they called me like journalists to ask what I'm thinking about and so on and so on. So I took the phone quite just, how to say, not very interesting in this phone. And the guy said in a very polite way that check if this is Olga Tokarczuk, I confirm, and he said that I am the Nobel Prize winner this year. And I said, no. And he said, yes. And I said, no. And he said, yes, you are.
They have better information.
So I think that this is the most clever, the most intelligent a reaction, whatever, for the announcement of the Nobel Prize. I was so completely paralyzed, as you said, and I really didn't believe that it happened to me.
As I see, it could be a chapter of your book, Flights.
Exactly. I was on my way, always on the road, and then Szymborska said that was for her. Nobel Prize was a kind of catastrophe, and I think that she was right. In my case, I was stopped on the beginning of my tournée after the award because of pandemia. So that's why I'm here. You should know that I was invited here just before pandemia, after the Nobel Prize, and I was already packed. My suitcases were in the corridor, and we were waiting to the next morning to go to the airport. And then this information appeared in media that we have a pandemia. So I called to my publisher, to Anagramma, and said, it is impossible to come because there is something wrong all over the world. There is pandemia. And they said, as the Spaniards, very optimistic, no, Olga, no, it is not true. Come to us. No, but the next day the borders were closed, so it was impossible to come. So as I promised that I will come here, I am so.
I can remember, we were.
So you asked me how it is now. The disadvantage of this entire situation is that I don't have time to write.
Yep.
Even if I can find 2 weeks to be alone at home and to concentrate, it always I am aware that my time, I think in the terms of the ocean of time which I need to write a novel, to concentrate, to think, to feel good in this atmosphere, it just completely disappeared. So on the beginning I started to worry what will be with me. But then in pandemia I had more time, so I wrote a collection of short story and then the essayistic book. And small funny book which we will mention in the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So I still that I think that it's okay.
But you can write when you find some short time, or is because you have moved to the countryside when you have found this space of this time for concentrating your writing?
I cannot write in a short moments of time. I can't write in a cafe. I can't write in the hotel, in airplane, in train. I need the time. I need my table. I need also the perspective that I will have more time. So I need at least 2 months to start to write.
We were talking about flights. How on earth a human being can conceive this kind of book with hundreds of stories, just like 1001 Nights, mixed and gone, but they all about our journey on earth, about those who travel, or about our own body as a vehicle of traveling. How did you conceive this book?
I would say that this is a literary monography of how to be on move, about movement, monography of movement. That was a time in my life that I used to travel a lot at the time, and I thought about how to write, how to collect, and how to tell about this moving, and there is a big trouble how to describe a traveling, because in the past, in the history, we had a specific genre for like a traveling book, like a memoirs, like a diary of the travel. But at the time, the travel was much more linear than today. it seems to me that you are traveling on ground. Then you have the sequences of what's happened really, and then you can describe it page after page, chapter after chapter, story after story. But today we are traveling in a completely different way, not only because of airplanes and this very paradoxical and strange situation that we are going to the airport, and then after some hours we are appearing in completely different place. Mm-hmm. Without having in our consciousness that we were on move in a way, because we are sitting in the... So it is like a jumping from place to place, from time to time. And my book is not only about physically traveling, but also about being on move in psychological, philosophical sense. And of course, the crucial thing in this book is the story about the Russian sect called Bieguni. And this Bieguni is also the Polish Slavic title for this book. It is very meaningful, but it is impossible to translate it right to the not Slavic languages. Mm-hmm. Bieguni, this is the name of the Russian sect. Bieguni, it's a biegać, bieg is in Polish and in Russian and in Czech and so on, like a core for naming run, to be on move, run. So this Russian sect comes from 18th century. That was a Christian sect, and they did believe that every single good Christian should be on move all the time. So when you stop, the devil will come to you and capture you. So they believed in physical movement. So they were all the time on the road, on the move. And when I traveled to Moscow many years ago, somebody showed me those people in metro and told me, perhaps this is just lying, but he told me that they're still using a metro to be on move, so they are sleeping in tube, in wagons, you know, they are eating and so on, but the tube is making them be on move all the time. So I was fascinated by this story because I felt that movement is something essential for our life. So this is like a ox of this book, axis, and then we can it's building entire sense, metaphorical sense of this book. So then I started to collect another stories in the order which I called a special genre, I would say, or a nowadays traveling book, constellation novel. That was the term I invented for this book. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that you are staying on the porch, on the terrace during the night. You can see the sky full of stars and planets, and they are just points. But our mind is working this way that can see through them the shapes, the collections, the constellations, and also stories. So this book is also a kind of deed of trusting to my readers that they will collect everything in one strong story, history. So this constellation novel is a very contemporary human experience of living in the world which is fragmented, full of gaps, full of many voices. And our task, our intellectual, our spiritual task is collect everything in one meaningful word. Mm-hmm.
We have this gypsy say here that if you stop, your own sweat make your grave. Mm-hmm. So it's the eagerness to move and keep moving. is something like that. There are two passages from the flights that captivated me. One is the clandestine return of Frédéric Chopin's heart to Poland, hidden in his sister's skirt. Mm-hmm. It is just historical. Or because the fact is, you invent stories, but you document so good that so meticulously.
That's why I am writer, not journalist.
Yes. And
this story was told to me by Andrzej Wajda, the Polish very famous director. Once he told the story, and he just described the story as a very movie-like. Mm-hmm. And he said to me that this story is real, that that was true, that it's happened. Because at the time Poland was under the occupation, Russian occupation, so there is, and Chopin was a kind of icon of patriotism, so the Russians would stop his sister and especially the piece of his body. But from the other side, it's so surrealistic, it's so crazy, that I realized that it will be good story for my collection.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Let's get inside a very, very good matter. I adore about Polish literature. I don't know if you agree. I hope so. I perceive the finest and sometimes a very dark sense of humor. It's always very specific. It's concretionary. And it's often mixed with terrible stories. It's a kind of a paradox. It's more evident probably in works like poems of Szymborska, but I also feel it in Milos, in Zbigniew Herbert, or in Zagajewski. And I wonder if you agree, if you feel that sense of humor, irony, is in all page you write, hidden, waiting to surprise the reader.
Mm-hmm. The Polish literature is full of so-called allusion to references to another things, and this is the question, it's funny, of censorship, because during the time of our dependency and occupation, so Polish literature work out a kind of expression which is just refer to something hidden, showing something different, and sometimes it's irony which is very strong. And I just grew up in such a context, so yes, so perhaps I belong to this culture of irony and referring to another things all the time. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that this is good way of writing poetry, but I think that in prose is not so obvious.
Not
I think that we in Poland we have a very strong poetry, but not so like mainstream bourgeois novels, because it's Polish literature was always involved into fighting, protesting, demonstrating something. So in a way, this avoiding of form of traditional novel is also rooted in Polish literature, and I'm doing this as a daughter of this literature. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And also as a trick to make censorship blind.
Yeah, in a way, yes, yeah. But now, now we don't have any censorship.
Yeah. But maybe the countries that suffer the most are better in sense of humor. Do you think?
Yes, the sense of humor is the last you have when you are in a tragic situation. What to do? It's only just to laugh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, by the way, what are the words that have made you laugh the most as a reader?
as a reader, words to love, words, you know?
Works, novels, that,
Novels.
or authors that made you laugh the most.
I like very much black humor. This is also my way of feeling that something is funny. For instance, in this book, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, I don't know if it is visible in Spanish, Basque translation, that this book, which is tragic and cruel in a way, it's also funny. I like surrealistic humor as well. Perhaps I cannot just very quickly to answer this question. Okay. But for instance, one of the lecture I am now just recalling to me is Hearing Trumpet of Leonor Carrington. This is so funny. This way makes me really happy, and it's really recognized by me as something which is funny.
Do you think we are losing our sense of humor in the modern nowadays world, in somehow?
Yes, we are losing this sophisticated way of meaning of humor. So, for instance, I was very disappointed when my book, this Drive Your Plow, was published in Poland, and the first readers took this book as a serious and even bombastic, or I don't know, with plague and so on. And then there was only a few people who recognized the black humor in this book. And then we talked with my English translator, Antonia Lloyd-Jones, and she said to me, "This is English black sense of humor." And when the book was translated into English, she was perceived as a very, very funny, and also tragic at the same time. Sometimes tragedy is going very close to the sense of humor. So, for instance, right now, the very famous and very good, genial theater company from London called Complicité, they made an adaptation of this book, and they play it as a theater piece. And you will have an opportunity to see it in Spain very soon, I think, in October.
Girona, no?
Yeah. And it is, from my point of view, it's made perfectly. They made it perfectly, which is the story is at the same time very tragic, very dark, very moving, and funny. When I was on the premiere in London, I was so satisfied that the entire audience, from time to time, started to laugh. I was so happy.
I talked about one book this afternoon by Juan Gabriel Vázquez, has just published Traducir el Mundo, to translate the world, which is a defense of fiction as a journey to the others that allows us to experience other lives and let's see the deep reason of the other, even the villain ones, of the stranger ones, and to put ourselves in their shoes. Is that trip interesting also to you today? I think so.
Yes, this is also my thought. And I think that we are slowly losing this trust for fiction, because the non-fiction, the information, the so-called facts are so strong and so visible, so aggressive in social media, in the internet, and there are so many of them, millions of information, and even if it is fiction, they try to pretend that they are non-fiction, that it's true. So people...
Self-fiction.
Yeah. So people lost the trust to the fiction, and sometimes they ask me, it's really happened that Olga, is it true what you wrote?
Yeah.
And then I don't know what to say, because I should say, oh my God, yes, from one point of view it's true, and from the other, no, it's not true.
There's a true behind.
Yeah, just recently I talked with a Canadian writer, and she wrote a book about, based on a historical figure in United States from 19th century. This is history about a giant woman. And she wrote a novel about her life, this giant woman, and then she was physically attacked during one meeting with the readers, because readers said, no, this is not true. What you wrote, we found in this old newspaper that the story was different. And what is your right to write a novel about this figure, this historical figure? You don't have any right, because this is lying, this is not true, this is just a fiction. And then we started to exchange emails, and even that was idea in those emails to write a manifesto in defense of fiction. That you cannot stop the fiction, because fiction is laying on the fundamentals of our civilization. So this is the same situation like you would say that, the Zeus and Aphrodite never exist because they are inventing, they are coming from our minds. This is not true. They never were on the planet. I think that fiction is something. It's a kind of glue which can create societies, and it can create a kind of common beliefs and common content. We are part of that, we are part of this content. The stories, the endless narratives going on around us and between us. So this recognition for stories which are false and true is for me as a writer always something stinky. So there is a beautiful definition of Aristotle's. He said that every fiction is a kind of true, and I like to believe in this definition. Yeah. So I would define my books that my books are kind of true.
Kind of true. Very beautiful. I was remembering in your novel lecture, you referred to the. Thank you. You referred to the self-fiction fashion. So many books of biographical memoirs of writers as a choir of soloists. It was funny for me to know that. And speaking about this lecture, there is this concept, the tender narrator. I think, if I'm not wrong, that this concept was born in your first literary success, in these short stories you published in Na Prelag, in a magazine in the 70s. Maybe you were talking about this concept, this tender narrator. Can you explain us what is it, the tender narrator?
I think that it will be closer to explain on the in relationship with one of the narrator of Jacob's books of Jacob. There is a Yenta there, Yenta, the old woman, being on the edge of life and death. So in her very specific position, she knows better and she sees more than the living being.
Is the one that swallows?
Yeah, the piece of paper with the magic something. And so, but her state is very specific, very special. She cannot die.
Yeah.
And she's in the state of being everywhere, traveling in time and coming back, changing places, so she can see everything. And she can also see from the position of frog, from the flower, and also from above, like bird. And she is always very engaged into every single being, also human being and not human being. So she is very sensitive. She is very empathic in a way. So she also can travel into the mind of the figures, of the characters in the book. And I think that the simplest way of explaining what I meant, creating the tender narrator, is just a moral demanding to be as close to the character in the book as it is possible. To use empathy, which is the very powerful sense, like a sixth sense of us, of all of us. So literature is based on empathy. So using this empathy, open the entire cosmos of another person. This is the simplest explanation.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you reach a situation or think about a real hard problem, as the problems we have with the climate, with politics, with all that, when your tender narrator would scream or yell or cry, what would you say? What would you write in this kind of situation?
Mm-hmm. Right now?
Yeah.
I think that she or he is crying about temperature today in Bilbao, about heavy rains in Greece. The climate change is the content of this crying, this yelling. This is also my personal anxiety. There is no single day that I wouldn't think about it. This is something which makes me feared and makes me completely uneasy. Mm-hmm. But this is also a question. I was some days ago. I was Barcelona, and somebody asked me, young writer from the audience, how we can write about this climate situation, from the completely new point of view on the world. What kind of genre will be suitable for this? What kind of words, what genre, what sentences, what way, what characters, what poems? And I really don't know how to just to grasp this subject. I don't know, perhaps I am from the older generation. But and you have to agree with me that there is no such a new way of writing facing with climate changes. And
maybe it's just honest writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the only way, because when you write, when you are creating a good story, you suspend the moral judgment of the events or the characters. So, as Vázquez say, you are only speaking to Cervantes.
Uh-huh.
He is the one that judges if you are being honest.
Uh-huh.
Huh?
Yeah.
There is no causes, or you are not in obedience of anything but the story.
Mm-hmm. The story.
So is freedom, so is resistance, literature.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Maybe we must go to the streets to demonstrate for the freedom of fiction someday, as you say.
But also to try to describe our moral position, our emotional position facing to this situation, And because we are different, some of them are better in demonstrating and creating a new law and thinking about new ideas. And some of us are just poets and artists, and I can only tell the stories. And what I did in Drive Your Plow over the bones of the dead, I created a live person, a live character, who is speaking in the name of animals.
Yeah.
But I had no idea how to find a way to express the voice of animals directly. I don't know how to do it. Not to be funny, not to be like fairy tale and so on. But Janina Duszejko, she is the heroine from this book. She became a very popular, and I really didn't expect this, because for me this book was written, I don't know if you will believe, but this book was written at the same time, exactly at the same time, like Books of Jacob. This has something with economy of writing, and I think that it's good to mention this situation, because sometimes we talking about literature, we are talking about such a, serious, beautiful, aesthetic, moral things. But also somewhere in the bottom of writing is just the economy, how to write a novel, how to account the price of every single page of the book. Nobody asked me about it, never.
Mm-hmm.
If I spent 8 years of my life writing this book, how to count, the book is very precious, of course, but how to count how many euro I should demand from these 8 years and so on. Anyway, but this is very interesting subject, because very many people used to think that artists are just working for nothing, for just living from the air. So I was in such a very difficult situation because I started to write Books of Jacob, and I was on the beginning, and I knew that I have to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and also a lot of money to write this book, because I had to travel, to check details, to go to archives, and so on and so on. And then I got a scholarship in Netherlands, so I took my materials, my laptop, and went to Netherlands. But I knew that when the grant will finished, I will find myself in Poland without any zlotys. So then I invented that there is a new fashion in Poland to detective stories. Mm-hmm. It was like 2012, something like this. No, even earlier. No, it was 2008 or something like, yeah. So then it was very in fashion in Poland to write detective story, and they were the writers were very popular and like pop stars and so on. So I thought to myself, okay, Tokarczuk, sit and write a detective novel, then you will have a money for Books of Jacob. So I did it. I had 2 tables in my room. On the bigger table was Books of Jacob, to prepare the materials, the notes and so on, and a small table in the corner of the room, and then that was my place for writing Drive Your Plow over the bones of the dead. Uh-huh. So I don't know how I did it, but I was able to change from one table to the other one, completely different books, completely. So yes, after some months I finished this detective story and sent to my publisher, and then I was happy to write on Books of Jacob's more.
You saved your economy.
I saved my economy, but also I'm still thinking how our mind can work, to split for such a completely different thing.
Well, the result is just amazing, because Books of Jacob are thousands of stories, a lot of religions, a lot of countries, and a very unique insight in the Jewish living ways from the Enlightenment century to our times almost. Mm-hmm. So how is the beginning of thinking about this Jewish story? Jews are very, very important in the story of the Poland culture.
Yeah, I think it's a very contemporary book, in fact.
Yes, it is.
That was by accident, I think. If anybody can believe in accidents. Once I was somewhere in the small bookstore, and I found out the booklet published by university some years before, so it was quite old, and it was a very crucial book for this Frankist movement, so-called Words of the Lord. It was written in Polish and written by acolytes of Jacob Frank, of his pupils. And I always told that I am not so bad educated, but I never heard about this story. So I said, must be interesting, but why? I don't know about it. It was so important for our history. And first of all, I thought about the narrative. This is like an adventures novel, like a Western in a way.
Yes, yeah. With fog.
Yeah. So I asked myself, what's going on? Why nobody knows this story? And when I finished to read this story, I knew why. Because the story was very controversial for many, many groups of interest in Poland. For instance, it was the story about a Jewish merchant, Sephardic in fact, coming to Poland as a new messiah, collecting people around himself, and making kind of emancipatory trip from the lowest layer of the Polish society, and ended up as an aristocrat somewhere in Germany, and doing so many strange things on the way, and manipulating people, and saying very important things to his acolytes, and making himself a very dangerous person for a Polish Catholic Church. So many, many things going together in this story. So he was, for many circles, he was bad guy. First of all, for Orthodox Jews. He was treated as a traitor, as a very dark person. And even when I read Gershom Scholem in his book, there is one chapter about Jacob Frank. Reading this text of Gershom Scholem, you can feel that the Gershom Scholem is, that would prefer not to touch this subject. This is awful.
Absolute rejection. Yeah.
And he was also very controversial, very bad guy for Polish Catholic Church, because
he was in jail.
He was jailed by Polish church, and what's more, he was imprisoned in a very special place in Częstochowa. This is the most important cult place for Polish Catholicism. We used to have this Black Madonna, which is, like something very, very holy. So he was imprisoned there, and he, after some years, created the center of his heresy exactly in this holy place of Polish Catholicism. And as a third, he was also the memory of him, and was also rejected by his descendants, his grandsons, granddaughters, because they successfully assimilated in Polish society and were very interested to forget their Jewish roots in face of the Polish anti-Semitism at the time. So everybody would like to forget the story.
This novel is like a continent, but you show us, in fact, by the way, the hardest anti-Semitism episodes I can't remember. Because not before of the Holocaust and all that, the Thracian, the tricky way they say the Jews was blamed for everything in any way.
Yes, but this is also paradoxical in this book, that there is a scene very, in a way...
the bishop was gambling.
Gambling, this is not so, this is just obvious. Yeah. They are gambling and doing worse things as well. But the scene which was very difficult for me, that was all those manipulation and anti-Semitic manipulation done by Frankists, who were also Jews. But when you ask me about the idea why to write this book, there are many, many reasons, and I had many motivations to write this book. One of them was also that a knowledge about Jews in Europe, especially in Poland, just stopped on the Holocaust.
Yes.
And nobody asked what's happened, why there were millions of Jews living in this part of Europe.
What happened
and
later
this is the
and
story,
before.
you know, the beginning of the story is here in Spain.
Yes,
in
yes, of course.
15th century.
Yes, 1492.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was the expelling.
They were expelled from Spain, and they were they went to the east, to the Germany and so on and so on. And
they were rejected in a lot of countries.
Yeah.
And they were hearing about Pauline.
Pauline at the time was Judeum Paradiso, so like a paradise for Jews. So the story is complicated, and I would like to also, for myself, for my son, for my family, for my friends, just to trace those stories about Jews in the past from medieval time, and especially in 18th century, at the special time when people started to change their mind about the world, about science, about,
You made visible a hidden, great history of our continent.
Yeah.
We're finishing, we have 5 or 6 minutes. Why don't we talk about your new novel that is published yet in Poland, but not yet in Spain? There are a lot of people telling me that it's like the Magic Mountain of Thomas Mann.
I know.
Because there are these sick men in a spa.
The beginning is very similar.
But there are the magic appearance of women, magical women.
Don't tell too much, please.
No, I don't say anymore. Just like that. But
the book is already translated, and we are waiting for the work on the text and so on. And this is just a small book and written in the genre of horror, because I like to use genres as a containers for the content. So I wrote a detective story, I wrote a historical novel, I wrote a traveling book.
Every time you challenge yourself.
Yeah, and never wrote a horror. So this is the horror, but a very strange one. And this is a kind of grotesque or game with literature. And I think that it can be called typical novel after Nobel Prize, because I didn't have too much time to write a very solid big novel. It's rather like a challenge for a good challenge for a reader to have a fun and to think a little bit about all those problems. I could only say that this horror is deal with misogyny. So this is the very on one level is quite serious book.
I've been told about it, but because you always have a lot of documentation, very rightful, and I think there are these sick men telling things not very good about women, but all these things have been said in the history of
in the culture. They are saying all the time, and
so
we are reading them.
You gather
this is the poison.
This is the poison.
This is the poison. But you asked me on the beginning, and perhaps it will be also the kind of closing this our conversation, how it is, what is my life after Nobel Prize. So this new book is located in a small village in my neighborhood. I live in a very small, special region in Poland, on the southern part of Poland, very close to Czech border. And in 19th century, this place called Gerbersdorf, now Sokołowsko, was the first place where people tried to cure tuberculosis using the power of nature. So one day the people from Davos came to Gerbersdorf and they observed how to do it, and they talked with the inventor of this method. His name was Brenner, and they came back to Davos and created this famous sanatory. So the beginnings are in Gerbersdorf, in my area, and so I came back in a way with this book to Gerbersdorf to write a pra-Davos story.
Now Davos is an economy sanatory, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Not tuberculosis, which is... No, it's coming back, tuberculosis.
Yes, they say. Yeah. So we must finish. Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much for this conversation, Olga. Y a todos ustedes también muchísimas gracias por atenderla. No olviden que Olga va a firmar sus libros a la salida y tienen la ocasión de llevarse una dedicatoria especial de Olga Tokarczuk para casa. Y el año que viene, the next year, in 2024, esperamos leer ese nuevo libro. We're waiting for the new book. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. But can I add something?
Yeah.
Because I haven't finished this closing this question. Because you asked me how my life changed after the Nobel Prize, and I would like to, and then I make a kind of small introduction about Davos and Gerbersdorf. But in fact, I would like to say, when I located the book in this small place, thousands of tourists came to this place, and people started to curse me for that. So then I realized how powerful can be literature, you know? Yeah. And so I have to be careful right now to use places and use subjects.
Well, we can suggest some places.
And prices went up very much, so this is the economy once again.
Thank you very,
sorry
very much.
that I interrupt you.
No.
In that.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.